A very good afternoon, everybody. Welcome once again to Toblach in the Italian Südtirol for the 15-kilometer interval free start skating technique. Mike Dixon alongside myself, David Goldstrom, on what is now a really gorgeous afternoon, as you can see, as the first athlete, this is Ville Nusiainen, comes to the top of the first climb at 2,100 meters. Now, this is a 15-kilometer race, 3 times around the 5-kilometer loop, and here to give you his feeling about the course, Mike Dixon.
It's a lot warmer, David. The women's race, -9. The temperature has warmed up just a little and more sun on the track. And it is a tough journey. 3 times round to 5, as you say. The first 2,200 meters are all climbing, just past that camera shot we have at 2.1. Then it's undulating, another major climb before a relatively simple journey back to the stadium. And 3 times around, you need to get your pacing just right.
Well, the early starters underway. -9 was the air temperature for the women, -6 for the men, with a snow temperature of -3.3 with 68% of humidity. So that just gives you the differential between the women who started early this morning. As you see, 1 or 2 people coming up the early climb. It's a fairly straightforward start, isn't it, Mike, out of the stadium?
It's fairly brutal climb. The first 700 meters, yes, are mainly gently up and with a couple of undulations, and then it's the climb from that point on, so over 1.3 kilometers, it continuous climb to the high point. You need to be a little careful. We saw that in the women's race. Victoria Carl especially went so fast up the first climb. The next time around she was running about 20 seconds, 30 seconds off that initial pace.
Well, this is the 5th distance race of this brand new Wiesmann-supported World Cup cross-country season. And as the bookmakers looked at it last night and early this morning, surprise, surprise, no surprise, that Johannes Klæbo of Norway, who's had an explosive start to the season, is today's 5-2 favourite. And 11-4 is the odds they offer on Martin Jonsrud Sundby. Interesting, Klæbo, bib number 42, due to start at 51, so about 9 minutes to the top of the hour, so not that far away. And then after those 2 in the betting, Magnificat, Moïse Magnificat for France, 100-30. Ustegov of Russia, 7-2. Dario Colonia at 9-1. Finn Krog at 12-1 for Norway. Helner, 14-1. And Matti Heikkinen, 17-1. Duvier of France and Alex Harvey, 20-1. Both of them with Holland and Rutte, another 2 Norwegians at 20-1 and 25-1 respectively. But after such an explosive start of the season, I suppose it's fair enough, Mike, that they make Klæbo favourite. But what I find interesting is they say, well, we knew it was good, didn't know it was that good.
You know, everybody saw what he did when he was a junior, and he looked very much one of those real special athletes. But what he's done this season has shocked the world of cross-country skiing. Sundby couldn't believe that he could be caught by somewhat 300 meters at the end of the distance race in Lillehammer.
New leader, Bjørnsen, up the first couple of kilometers here. So a long way to go. And we'll be looking to see who might be our pathfinder when we come back after this. So Bjørnsen it is who leads here. Erik Bjørnsen from the Alaska Pacific Nordic Ski Center. But 91 athletes, 28 nations represented this afternoon. Well, Mike Dixon, together with myself, David Goldstrom, early starters here, first dozen on their way, and looking to the favourites. Mike, you've been keeping your expert eye on the cross-country skiers since the beginning of the new campaign. Klæbo, impressed? Can't help to be, surely.
He's just so special. He can sprint, he can cope with distance. We saw that in the skiathlon, 30 kilometers, and he was exhausted, and he's doing the the weekends of races. He's doing the sprint competitions and the next day the distance. They did rest him, and I think that was very sensible in Davos. They didn't let him start in the 15-kilometre, and I think that'll save him. He needs to be managed because he wants to take part in all these races, but they still want him to be good for the Olympics in February.
Now, there is British interest in today's competition. Andrew Young and Andrew Musgrave go. Of the two, of course, over distance, you'd favour Andrew Musgrave. He's amongst the seeded group. He wears bib number 58 today. But by utter coincidence, because they start at 30-second intervals, Andrew Young wears bib number 57. So it's going to be quite interesting to see what happens when Andrew Musgrave catches up with Andrew Young, which is sure to happen, to see how Andrew Young responds, because he has been improving over distance. Will he be able to stick with Andrew Musgrave and get a even better performance out of his run today? Could be. Yeah,
we'll have to wait and see, and I think it may help both of them to be starting 30 seconds behind. As you say, we'd expect Andrew Musgrave to haul in the 30-second deficit, and maybe they can work together.
Now, the word on Sunday is that he's divorced himself from his family and his kids. He'd been getting or feeling a bit sick and felt that he needed to get away and focus to try and find his form, because we haven't seen the best of him this season.
He's not the man he was the last 6 seasons. There's something missing. He's still got the strength. We saw that in Lillehammer in the skiathlon, but he didn't have the sharpness to take the victory. He had to deal with second place when Klæbo came past him.
So others to look out for. Well, I think Sergei Ustinov, you're impressed with his start to the season?
Yeah, Ushchikov, he started a little slowly in Ruka up in Finland, came a little better in Lillehammer, and then last weekend we saw the best, him at close to his best. Only 4 seconds off Magnificat for second place.
And of course Magnificat is the man who has pretty well all the cards in his hand. Because of the seeded athletes, he goes with bib 70 is at the end, so he can feed off all the timings of everybody who's preceded him.
And we've seen in the past, David, on the Tour de Ski, on this track, he likes these tracks. In fact, when Andrew Musgrave set the fastest time in a stage race over 25 kilometres, Magnificat on that day helped Andrew and was the second fastest at the end of the day.
And this is his distance, isn't he? 15 kilometres.
Loves it, absolutely loves it. And even further out to 20s and 30s.
But 15 is where he's been getting his victories.
It is, and he's equalled Vincent Vito with, 9 victories in World Cup distance racing.
So just getting ready, new generation of Russians. Happy about that. Hopefully they'll be a hell of a lot better than the boys that have disgraced themselves in recent years, shall we say. Bib number 30 today belongs to Tony Livers from Davos. Lives at altitude, and well, 15 kilometres is his distance. He had 1 career World Cup win. In fact, it was a joint victory, from what I remember, long time ago.
It's ringing a bell. It is indeed. And when you live in Davos at 1650 metres, you come down, yes, only 400 metres here, 1,200 metres. You're going to feel just a little bit more comfortable.
Yeah, 34 years of age from Davos as we move up the first climb. Can't give you too much information at the moment because somebody in Toblach hasn't put a shilling in the meter and the computers are not giving us all the statistics, so bear with us. Fortunately, we've not got, I believe, to the crucial part of the race as yet, but it is a little frustrating that we can't give you some early pace information. Not quite sure what's going on. It's, I think, a server problem somewhere.
Hurland just getting the final fluid you need to take on board. They've all been out for a good warm-up, testing of skis, and
yeah, Hans Christer, good start to the season. A couple of third-place finishes, 7th in the ranking at the moment. And as I said, we've had the 2 races. He got a 3rd in the pursuit. He was 3rd in the skiathlon at Lillehammer.
He's been good. We do know that he's had this disc problem in September, so he had to take a lot of rest whilst the others were in high glacier camps. So he's maybe gained from that. He's certainly in good form, and this race will suit him. Yeah, much better start to the season than in previous years. 34 about to get underway. Francesco De Fabiani, now a little bit older, so not able to come
command the under-23 rankings as he once did. This man, 15 kilometers, again, this is very much his distance, but he's tended to really pull off the big races in classic style more than freestyle.
Yes, he's certainly, on paper, he's better. And I know he's been working in the freestyle to improve the freestyle, but on paper, he is still a better classic technician.
Strange when we think about that for Italians, because the Italians really favour skate over classic in a big way.
Very much so. Of course, Pellegrino in the sprints last weekend, second place, he nearly clung on to Klæbo. But it's been a while since they've had a distance racer at the top in the men's field as well as the women's.
So still no really challenging times here, but of course not everybody can win the race. A lot of these men, particularly these early starters here, would have set personal targets for themselves. Up this first climb just gives you, it's quite undulating Toblach, but it is a gorgeous afternoon. Look at this weather, all set for a fantastic Christmas and New Year.
Welcome back. Skor Rota has just got his race underway and looked very dynamic from the start. Hasn't shown the best form prior to today this season, but he's certainly a favourite when it comes to the big events and of course the Olympic Games should he make the Norwegian team. Well, the fans are enjoying the sunshine coming into the stadium.
They are, and now we're really coming to the crucial part of the race now with Johannes Klæbo of Norway, of course, this superstar at the age of just 21. Look at that, overall Sprint World Cup champion last season, 9 career wins already, and a dynamite start to the season. So he goes off on his journey, a man who was 4th last year in the overall World Cup rankings, but he's very much in command as he goes out now. Up the first climb very shortly, and he effectively is going to become our pathfinder. And I just wonder what that difference is going to make for him, because most of his dangers are actually starting later than him today, so they will get splits on him.
They certainly will, and that absolutely, in my book and in all racing athletes' book, that is an advantage. You're pushing hard, but if you know you've got 2 seconds to pull back, somehow within yourself, you can find just a little more push.
The Fabiani going up. Interesting, the importance now of Skate 2 in a race like this today. But perhaps the more interesting thing, which you could actually touch upon, Mike, is the fact you can skate 2 well, you can also skate 2 poorly.
You can, and look at the steepness of this hill. Right now it's the skate 1 where you're deliberately, absolutely leading on one side with arm and leg collapse at the same time and supporting leg coming high into the hill. But we will see some, David, where they'll be compressing with the poles at the same moment and hands, same space in front of your chin effectively, and compressing on each individual leg. We'll see some of them taking it much further up this climb. But the problem with that, it builds lactic acid, it's more like strength training, and you fatigue just a little quicker using that gear.
So just to give you an idea, early on, 2.1 kilometers, Germany's Lucas Burgel is the man who leads out, and now Alex Harvey. Well, Alex Harvey, highlight of his career, much to our delight, Mike. We enjoyed this just meters away from Alex when he brought home the World Championship title at 50 kilometers in Lahti at the World Championships last February. And that was a race that will mark him for the rest of his career as being a superstar in the sport. And
he's such a tactician, isn't he? He hunted in that race. He never wanted to take on much of the lead. He did try to break it a couple of times. They came with him, and the clever option was to hide in the pack at the front, and he played his cards so beautifully well to take the title, the world title.
Now, Finn Hågen Krogh for Norway coming up to challenge young Berger. 7.5 seconds the advantage there. And Finn Hågen, well, he only finished 10th in the overall World Cup last season, and he's outside the top 20 at the moment. But he's eyeing the Olympic Games. We understand that obviously he will be vying for a place in the relay and also in the team sprint. And now Dario Cologna. Switzerland's #1 for so long, and what an outstanding skier this is. He's only 31, and yet he seems to have been around for, well, seemingly another decade, really. But 31, if he's fit, if he's well, if he's 100%, he's a danger to everyone.
He certainly is, and so often we've seen him at major championships come to his best form, and I'm sure that's his plan this time around. Again, that all-important February the 11th, the Olympic Games starting. Yeah,
triple Olympic gold medalist Dario Cologna, and winner of the Tour de Ski on no less than 3 occasions. There's the familiar board now. When they sign on to that, they are saying, I am a clean athlete. I do my training and I do my job clean. I hope that's always the case, but I'm always a bit dubious about 1 or 2.
Well, history has proved that even with the signature, yep, it doesn't always work.
But here's a young man representing Russia, now mid-20s, Sergei Ustugov, lying 6th, and his best race of the season last weekend, Davos, runner-up, 2nd place to Magnificat.
I like the way that Ustugov started. We saw Klæbo, we've seen Schuur Rota starting as if it's a sprint race. Ustugov, one of the best sprinters in the world. He was conservative. He started quite easily from the start gate. Here's Klæbo.
So, come on, Mike, you've seen him over these early weeks. What makes him so special?
You know, I was trying to analyse that when he started. There's something about his technique. So he gets great weight over the working ski and great compression. And his timing and movement, for me, is a little sharper than most. His awareness is crisp and clean when you see him in sprint racing.
Very well balanced.
Everything about him is just so special. And, of course, his grandfather coaches him. Believes in that structure as a good home and family life as all these top athletes need, and it's a good time.
Yeah, that's absolutely fine. Couple of seconds down at this point, and also he's found himself amongst a bit of traffic, so that hasn't helped either.
But comparing his work rate, David, compared to Schuur Rota, who set the fastest time, he looks like he's on a Sunday afternoon cruise. Does Klæbo? Schuur Rota was attacking over that climb. So I think he's skiing well within himself, Klæbo.
Bib 60 belongs today to Jean-Marc Gaillard, 37-year-old Frenchman, and we switch to Hans Christer Holland for Norway. An improving skier for Norway.
Very much. He's been in and around the teams for years, and he's always there or thereabouts. When it comes to distance races, well, today's a distance race, but pack racing, the mass starts, he doesn't have a good finish. He doesn't have a sprint.
Hasn't won a World Cup yet, but
I think that may change this winter.
So coming up here, you can see Finn Krogh still very much in the lead there. 4 seconds, 5 seconds separating 3 very talented Norwegian racers. And watch out, pretty soon, Andrew Musgrave will be on his way, preceded by Andrew Young, 54. This is Alexei Poltoranin, 30 years of age, and a man who's been, perhaps, I think, more successful in the classic races.
He has, and you know, when you think about Poltorainen, you think exactly of his classic technique, how smooth and easy that is, but he really has worked this summer to improve, to raise his skating by a small percentage. Alex Harvey is just, again, the shoulders are level, the hips are level. He really brings the non-working side, lead side, well up into the hill.
Yeah, nice rhythm. And all of what you've just said, Mike, is really important, because what it's doing is it's achieving what he's trying to do with the most economical action, which means that he's preserving energy.
Put that over 35 minutes, it's a big deal.
Jonas Bouwman, so we're a minute away from Andrew Musgrave starting for Great Britain. Very good afternoon to everybody up at Huntley. Hope you're watching. Andrew, it's been a so-so start to the season. They've been a little bit disappointed, but maybe today's the day. A good race could be in the offering here. He's got a good draw. Conditions are good, and this is probably the best opportunity he's had this season to show what he's got about him.
I think so. And it's been a good start. A 16th, 28th, 13th, the 16th. You know, this is the world and the world nations that generally lead this. The Scandinavians, of course, Russia's always there. And I think Muzzy's doing a great job in at the sharp end.
Yeah, of course, we can't forget the fact that he's already won a World Cup. He's won a stage in the Tour de Ski, but also, of course, within 1.5 seconds of a World Championship bronze medal behind, you know, Alex Harvey, who won the gold medal last year in the 53. I mean, that was just, I mean, we thought he was there, didn't we?
Oh, it was so close. 4th place at a World Championships. Over that distance, it's just, you can't make that stuff up. It's there with the best.
It's a great finish, but it's the worst place to finish. Ustigov now. Ustigov, who at the age of 25 should be really coming into his power.
Now this is the skate to Ustigov still, so he's compressing there on each side, on each leg, and no previous athlete to this stage has taken it so far up the climb.
Started when he was pretty young at ski school as actually a biathlete. That's where he first started cross-country skiing. And hails, he's from the Mansi population, Khanty-Mansiysk, that sort of part of the world.
That's very remote, a long, long way away, but great for biathlon and cross-country.
Jean-Marc Gaillard, well, you can see his achievements there. Terrific servant to the French team. So Andrew is on his way, both Andrews in fact, Andrew Young and Andrew Musgrave. And fastest up the first 2.1 kilometers at the moment, Dario Colonia. He's 1.5 seconds quicker than Finn-Hågen Krogh and 2 seconds quicker than Harvey, 4 seconds faster than Klæbo, and Hans Christian Holland 6.2 seconds back, Ustigov 7.6. And actually this is really what Klæbo has been waiting for, because he needs those splits to know what he needs to do to increase the pace out front.
He'll be getting all the information, although it's information from 5 minutes ago. It's going to let him know that he needs to pick his pace up, and I do think that Klæbo was really conservative to the 2.1, as Alex Harvey was, but setting very competitive times.
Hellner on his way.
Here is Klæbo again.
Coming around to the 5-kilometer point here, as you can see, 1/3 distance. Finn-Hågen Krogh here in 10:52, and Klæbo, who was, what, a couple of seconds behind Finn-Hågen Krogh, and they're still pretty well together, aren't they?
Well, there's not the 1.9. It's just easy running at the moment.
And Finn-Hågen Krogh's no slouch, so you know, that's still a decent time. But I think for Johannes Klæbo, what he's got to do now that he's getting information that's going to be coming back, he's going to have to increase the pace, and this second rotation is crucial, because now he needs to start to turn the screw and put the others under pressure.
And it appears as if that is the way he's running his race. 1/3 of the distance gone, 5Ks under his belt. It's comfortable. He's not in any threat of being left behind, and he does seem to be in control of his race. And I do like the way he was rested. Mentioned it earlier, rested over the Davos 15 kilometers, especially after the hard day in the sprints on the Saturday.
I should just mention that everybody who's supposed to start will start at the moment. No withdrawals. One absentee, big absentee, Petter Northug, not being in fine form and getting ready for the Tour de Ski. I'm told that he's definitely going to go into that, but he needs to win a race to be selected for the Olympics. He's not got an Olympic place at the moment. I can't imagine that he's not going to go to the Olympic Games, but on the other hand, he's got to get a victory. The Norwegian team is immensely competitive, and the word is that obviously the Tour de Ski might be where he achieves a victory, but I'm told to keep an eye on him for Planica in January.
Well, that's a good warning. When you look, you said they're a difficult team to get into. There's 7 of them, 7 Norwegians ranked in the world top 15. How do you get into that team? So Northug, I think he does need to be a little careful, and he needs to come back soon. What about Sundby? Off form, definitely off form last weekend with his 20th position in Davos.
Yeah, but he preceded that with a second place in the skiathlon in Lillehammer. So interesting now that he's decided that he has to take himself away into another place and work. The big major individual medals, Mike, have eluded Sundby. You know, he races a lot, he wins World Cups, he wins the Tour de Ski, not once but twice, but, you know, 3 times. And, you know, he's got an Olympic silver from the relay, he's got an Olympic silver from the 50 free. You know, he's got a bronze skiathlon from Sochi as well. But the gold medal, is he ever going to win one?
Well, and that is, it must be in the back of his mind all the time. He's done so much at World Cup, overall World Cup winner so many times, but slightly underperforms at the majors. Of course, he's getting promoted in the 50k from Sochi because of the first 2 no longer holding on to those medals.
Andrew Musgrave, positive start into 4th place, 3 seconds slower than Dario Cologna up the first climb at 2.1 kilometers. We haven't seen him. Obviously, we should have put a 10-bob note into the director to make sure he kept an eye on him. But we'll keep an eye on the computer screens to bring you Andrew's progress. What that means is that he's traveling at about the same pace, maybe a little bit faster than Klæbo. If he's as comfortable as Klæbo, then could be a good day.
I think that's a wonderful start for Andrew, and when he's attacking at that pace from the gun, he's feeling good. He's coming back to, I think, and I hope, his best.
Well, over the years, he's got much better at pacing a race. And, you know, on his day, we know domestically he can stand up with any of the Norwegians.
Very much so. And of course, basing himself in Trondheim since what, age 17? It's really worked for him.
Yeah, it's interesting. He's lived all over the blooming place, hasn't he?
In his early years.
Yeah, you know, I mean, it's remarkable when you think that where's Muzzy? He's been. Shetland, Alaska, Aberdeenshire, Trondheim. It is not, you know, he's not that old.
And learned Norwegian so quickly. Ustjugov, that is Ustjugov 50. Yes, it is, of course. Still running easy, and he makes it look so easy, dancing up over the stadium here, Stadium Hut.
So at 10 o'clock, 10 kilometers, splits off the leader. At 5 kilometers, still Finn-Hågen Krogh, the quickest to that point. Promising Norwegian. And Kruger, as you can see, right up there with the best of them at 2.1 kilometers. He'll be a few seconds down, but at this stage of the race, that's a decent start.
Is comfortable, 7.4 at the top of the first big climb. Is it pacing? Is he holding something back? Does appear to be working quite aggressively, so I just would assume that that's him on his comfort limit up here.
Well, at the moment, Andrew Musgrave through 3,500 meters and traveling at the same speed as Finn-Hågen Krogh. So far so good, but very early days. You need to get this first 5,000 meters, Mike, as economically as possible. You need to expend as little energy as possible.
It really is so much about pacing, and of course everybody in this field today know their cross-country skiing. They've done hundreds of races, in fact, since they were young, since they were 9, 10, 11-year-old. And even with that base knowledge, you still need to manage it within your present form.
Here's
you will tie up later.
This was the man who was leading at 5 kilometers, now looking to have the lead at 10, Finn-Hågen Krogh.
This looks something, David, of Finn-Hågen's best form. He hasn't been at the races really by his high standards, and I know he's had an easier week since Davos, so he's got some recovery in his legs, and is certainly looking and feeling better today.
Well, a couple of World Championship gold medals in his trophy cabinet. He was a gold medalist with the Norwegians in the relay. He'll be looking to make the Olympic team.
Well, here he is, Magnificat, just looking again when it comes to freestyle. I love the sharp pointed knee, therefore allowing him to keep his hips forward and keep the skis sliding up the steepest of hills. The time's good, but I'm not sure it's going to set the new fastest time.
Home for him is Sallanches in Haute-Savoie. Great relay effort in Sochi by the French there to take the silver medal. And Musgrave, you can see the relevant positions there going through the first climb. And it means that Colonia, Krog, Harvey, Musgrave, Klæbo, Sundby, Holland, Magnificat are all within 6 seconds of each other.
It's not a big margin. I just felt, you saw the facial expressions there. It looked like he was in agony already. And after 5 minutes, you want to still be holding some comfort.
Yeah, but sometimes, you know, Mike, it doesn't work out, does it? You know, you're expecting pain later on, but sometimes it happens early on. You don't find your rhythm. You just got to work through that, and then almost like getting a second wind, it could still happen for him.
And it's so strange. You can be at your best. We saw that last weekend. He was at his absolute best to take the 15-kilometer in Davos, and just 7 days later, you can go through a different feeling completely.
And there's Björnsson of the United States still in the lead. Eric, 26 years of age. And just looking at his overall performance, he's never been on a World Cup podium at the end. Last year was ranked outside the top 80. So who knows, maybe on a better curve of form. But I don't think he's going to hold on to that lead for too long, because Spitsov, the Russian, really motoring in here. And to some effect, the 21-year-old bronze medalist at the under-23 World Championships over this distance in this skating style last season, and takes a 33-second bite out of the time.
Spitsov is good. Good to see Klæbo again, second time around, 10 kilometers. And look at that, 4.9. He's still hunting Finn Hagen Krog's time, but does he know that Andrew Musgrave is now setting the best time at 5 kilometers, taking 4.3 seconds out of Finn Hagen Krog?
Yeah, no, that's good, but this is where, you know, Muzzy and the coaches really got to be on the money here, because the information to Andrew is really important. He needs enough of it, but he needs it to help him not just correct his pacing or adjust his pacing, but to maintain his confidence.
I think you need information, don't you? But I think the fact that he set his stall out so aggressively, so early, that's Andrew's intention today, is to give it everything over every millimetre of this 15-kilometre.
It'd be rather nice if the director chose to actually show him, because we haven't seen him at all, which is immensely frustrating. 10,000 metres, the leaderboard changing all the time, but those three Norwegians, Krog, Holland and Klæbo, 4-5 seconds separating the three of them. It was much closer. Klæbo, 10 kilometers, he's going to have to do some work now on this last 5K.
He probably realizes, he knows how Finn Hagen Krog races and goes hard from the gun, and I said earlier, I don't think he's at his best, and we expect maybe a little fatigue in Finn Hagen over the last 4 kilometers. Just so it's still Muzzy, Andrew Musgrave holding the best time at 5 kilometers. Andrew Young, 1:45 off the pace at 5 kilometers.
Yeah, apologies folks, but that we hadn't brought you that information before, but obviously our eyes are keen for Andrew Musgrave, who's working his way towards 7,000 meters. And Alex Harvey, 300ths quicker than Finn Hagen Krog, so maintaining his pace now as he's got just the last third of the race to go. As you said, he's much more of a hunter, so these time trials are not necessarily his cup of tea, but he's a much more mature athlete these days.
He is. The time trials are interesting. It's entirely you against the clock, and often we see traffic gathering. Klæbo had a few athletes hanging on to him. They know he's a good benchmark, and again, a good athlete will drag a few athletes behind, but it's a very different mindset. Your own race, your own pace against the clock.
Now, Colonia, who was some 8 seconds behind Andy Musgrave at 5 kilometers and 6 seconds behind him at 7.1 kilometers, and Muzzy traveling 3 seconds faster than Finn Hagen Krog at 7.1 kilometers. So so far so good, but you know, we were gutted, weren't we, Mike, when he just missed out on a medal at the World Championship. So let's keep ourselves grounded a little bit, but it is going quite well at the moment.
It is indeed. Dario having a look over his shoulder, expecting 68, the Norwegian, well, Sundby, the great, he was expecting Sundby to come past him.
No, Sundby's recognised that he's not at 100% by any means. I mean, Sundby, though, is he, you know, at 5 kilometres, he was 7 seconds behind Muzzy, which is not a bad deficit by any means.
It's not at all. Sundby much better looking this week than he was last week in Davos.
Ustigov, 9.5 seconds behind Muzzy at 7.1 kilometres. So Tony Livers, for the moment, going into the lead. Now, this is interesting. Alex Harvey, just looking at Harvey. Harvey was 6 seconds behind Muzzy at 7.1 kilometres. So he's gone into the lead at 10. And there's Klæbo going through. He's very much on the run for home now, Klæbo.
Well, now all the big names have gone through, David, gone through 5 kilometres. Kruger, the young Norwegian, is in second place to Muzzy, and Magnificat 5th place, 5.2 behind Muzzy.
And the big Russian is now only 1.4 seconds behind the leader.
Noch 5 Kilometer auf Platz 17, Max. 23 auf 1.
12.1 kilometres, and this is a pretty important point. Finnhagen Krogh 12 seconds ahead of Klæbo. Look at that, there it is. You can see the differential there. Klæbo 12.6 seconds down. That's 2.9 kilometres in which to make up that sort of deficit. So I think Finnhagen Krogh is going to have to go out like a candle to let Klæbo get back to winning ways, or continue winning ways, I should say. Another man, actually, who's running a good race, a couple of Russians, Spitsov we've seen, but also Besmertnik, who we haven't mentioned, wearing bib 38, started very early, and actually that's a good effort. Clément Paris, Besmertnik is not home yet, but he's racing physically along the track ahead of Klæbo, so he's going to be challenging Tony Livers, and he was quicker than Tony Livers by some 10 seconds. So the likelihood is that Besmertnik is going to go into the lead for a moment when he gets towards the finish.
Well, Alex Harvey, he still looks easy, doesn't he? But there he is. He's just pressing his throttle down and lifting his pace slightly.
2.5 seconds ahead of Finnhagen Krogh, so that's a 2-second gainer in 2.1 kilometres. Effectively up the climb, Mike. That's where Harvey's made his gain.
Yes, he's definitely put the pressure on up the climb. I'm just looking further back down the track. Kruger is beginning to close down on Andrew Musgrave's lead time at 7 kilometres, and Muzzy now gone through 8.5, and he's 8.2 seconds ahead of Finnhagen Krogh.
Yeah, I think it's, you know, but, you know, 8.5, he's not yet 2/3 distance. I mean, this is absolutely crucial. Now, here comes into the finish
Rickardson.
Yeah, Rickardson, who, well, to be fair, he's had not bad results in the last couple of races, 12th and 22nd, but he's a long distance man more than anything else, longer than 15 kilometres. So they're getting excited in the stadium because Finnhagen Krogh coming home now to tackle Tony Livers, and obviously he's going to take a big bite out of that time, and by 11 seconds he leads. Finnhagen Krogh from Tony Livers, Norway, Switzerland. Dennis Spitsov of Russia into 3rd place, ahead of Francesco De Fabiani of Italy. We talked about his classic prowess, but that's a good freestyle race for Francesco. Larkov of Russia just behind in 5th place, ahead of Rickardson. But Krogh 11.2 seconds ahead. And here we go. The first time that we've seen Andrew Musgrave coming up to the 2/3 distance. And finally, the director has found him. 11 seconds. That's his cushion. But is it going to be sufficient? Can he rely on that? If he maintains that sort of race pace, well, he's got a real chance here, Mike. I was looking for him to make top 10 today. I would actually, to be honest, top 15 would also also been good, but given what he's done in the first two-thirds of this race, I'd be really disappointed if he's not inside the top 10, or who knows, maybe even better.
Well, we'll have to wait and see, but it's certainly the aggression. That's Andrew Musgrave at his best. When you saw the steely look up the hill and the tempo, the aggressive attacking technique, he's not going to back off from that amount of push. But he does have Kruger and now Magnificat on his case at 7.1.
Yeah, Kruger, yeah, just 1.2 seconds behind him, really, at 8.5 kilometers. Krog would be 8 seconds behind. But, you know, it's so easy to run out of gas on this third circuit here.
And you always get the advantage when you start as a later athlete. You've got the advantage of being told exactly what's happening ahead of you to those who are setting the time, how much your gap is either closing or extending. Dear Haug, he hasn't really set his season alight yet. That's 1 minute behind, and that's his teammate Finn Hagen Krogh, who's not going to be leading by the end of the day.
Kruger, 24 years of age, Simon Hegstadt Kruger, having a really good performance. He's been on the podium once in third place. Here's Klebo. Well, I think a really difficult start position to be out there and being shot at by basically everybody.
And, you know, wind the clock back 3 seasons, the yellow bib would always be starting last. Of course, that was changed 2 seasons ago, and it's not an advantage going as early as Klebo has.
Now, is he going to be good enough to even hold on to a podium place?
Don't think so, not today. So for the first time, his racing season, he won't be on the podium. But it's still good points. You know what, David, if there was a group of skiers around him there, you'd have seen an explosive, incredible finish. He didn't have that when it's just him against the clock. I'm not saying he has any weaknesses. The man is amazing.
Yeah, just looking back at 8.5 kilometers, Sundby was 23 seconds down at that point. Just trying to trace Magnificat at the moment. This is Holland coming through.
Yeah, Magnificat should be coming through 8.5 very soon.
Holland was 12 seconds down at the two-thirds distance on Muzzy. So again, this will give us a bit of a guide. And Klebo off the podium. Off the
podium for the first time. Holland. That team, it's just so close to make the Norwegian top 4.
Right, Magnificat's now making some gainers here, because at 8.5 kilometers, he's now 5.5 seconds behind Musgrave, and maybe he had a bit of a tough start, Mike, but I was alluding to the fact that sometimes that happens. You just have to work your way through it.
Third place, so Magnificat is, what, some 3 seconds ahead of Finn Hagen Krogh at 8.5.
Yeah, just having a look at... see, actually, when you look at it, Harvey coming in now to take the lead. Well, that was predictable.
That's a strong finish.
That is a very strong finish.
He's really lifted the pace over the last 3 kilometers. He knows how to run these distance races.
Well, Andrew Musgrave, I can tell you, at 12.1 kilometers, 8 seconds to the good over Alex Harvey. So that is significant. He was 11 seconds to the good, and that was at 10 kilometers. So Muzzy, I think, is going to find this really, really hard over the last 2,900 meters.
I'm just reading the terrain, David, as Harvey gets his breath back. From 8.5, Muzzy was ahead of Kruger by 1.2 seconds. At 10 kilometers, now most of that is downhill, remember, back into the stadium.
Yeah.
Kruger has turned that, has shifted that to a 4.6 second gain. So Kruger definitely running better on the easier sections, the downhill sections. So Muzzy in second place at 10K.
Kruger is ahead of Musgrave through 10 kilometers by 5 seconds. So this is the turning point, really, of the race now. I think Kruger is accelerating, but again, he's got 5,000 meters to go. It's a question of how much Muzzy can keep the drive going.
We mustn't forget Ustigov's still out there, and he's close to Harvey's time at 13.5.
Dario Colonia into 7th place, so a respectable effort there. I just do wish, Mike, that there was a sort of golden rule in the television coverage of these races which said you have to cover the last 1,500 metres so that we can actually track and trace, not just on a computer, but actually visibly see what's happening actually on the snow.
Yeah, that would be so good. Here comes Magnificat, but with 1 lap to go, we'll see exactly how he stands in terms of Kruger and Andrew Musgrave.
Well, he was 5 seconds down to Musgrave. We'll bring you that any moment now. Kruger, Musgrave, the front two, and Magnificat looking actually pretty good at the moment.
Well, again, he's lost time a little like Muzzy on the downhill section, the easy section.
Yeah, but he's, you know, 9.5 seconds. So at the moment, Kruger and Musgrave are the two racers out there who are exciting. Harvey leads in the clubhouse. Oosterhoff has gone second. Finhagen Krog is third. So Canada, Russia, Norway. That's the 1, 2, 3. Tony Livers of Switzerland, actually really good race in 5th place at the moment still. That was a very good run. And he's actually got ahead of Klebo. I mean, he's run 0.2 of a second quicker than Klebo. Tony Livers, that's an excellent run for the man from Davos.
It's a very respectable performance. And that, I think Klebo will still survive, what, in the top 12, top 10 maybe?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, interesting, Tony Livers. I mean, he lives and trains at altitude, and we are not quite so high as Davos, but, you know, still at altitude here in Toblach, in the northern Dolomites. I'm
just looking at Andrew Musgrave's time in the latter stages of the race compared to Alex Harvey. He's losing a little time to Alex Harvey between 12.1 and 13.5 kilometers.
And Matti Häkkinen for Finland, the best for his country, has gone into 5th place, 13 seconds down on Alex Harvey. Just looking at the differential between Häkkinen and Musgrave at 12 kilometers. Well, it was big, 26 kilometers.
Yes, Kruger, and I must say he's looking good. He's looking composed, and Muzzy's time, I think, will be knocked down.
Well, remember, we reckon he was 4 or 5 seconds to the good. Now he's 6 seconds to the good. But could Muzzy hold on and get a podium? That's our big question.
It just all depends from this section on. We've talked about the terrain. It's downhill now, then one final climb, and then quite an easy journey back down into the stadium. You need a good glide under your skis.
Now remember that Muzzy, he's got an 8-second advantage at 12.1 kilometers over Alex Harvey. And just having a look at it, Musgrave, Harvey, 8 seconds with 1,500 meters to go. Well, Andrew Musgrave is now mature enough to know that this is a super opportunity for him. He has to die for this. He has to absolutely empty.
And he will.
In so doing, Mike, he's got to keep his shape and form, and skiing, you know, he's got to keep the shape.
Yeah, sometimes when you tighten up, when you tense up and you're pushing for those lines, you do lose a little bit of form. And talking of form, it does seem like Sumbi has got some of his prowess, some of his strength back today. Compared to that, what, 30 seconds off last weekend in Davos with the 20th position. Well, 30 seconds again.
Yeah, you look at the shoulders, Mike. I mean, you know, they are rocking a little bit horizontally here.
And the tempo, he had endless tempo normally coming up climbs like this. He would eat them up. Here's Muzzy.
So Andrew Musgrave coming into, and he's challenging Alex Harvey for first place here, and what a race for Andrew Musgrave. I sense that this might be a day for him. Modest, decent results before today, but this is what the man is really made of. Coming towards the line, Andrew Musgrave, Great Britain, into first place by 2.5 seconds, and the big danger at the moment is surely Simon Kruger to him, but Musgrave on the top of the podium steps in 30 minutes 10.3 seconds. Harvey drops to second, Oosterhoff to third. Look at the people he's taken today here, and Kruger now. Kruger is definitely in with a chance of taking the lead away from Musgrave. Well, Mike's getting very excited, not least because, believe it or not, Musgrave's odds were 100 to 1, 150 to 1 with some bookmakers to get the outright victory. victory, and being a Scotsman, I'm sure the wager's modest, but nonetheless, obviously we'd be delighted if he were to actually win the race. This would be a fantastic fillip just before the Christmas holidays, and also in the build-up to the Olympics, where 15 kilometres is very much his target.
I don't think it's going to be a win, sadly, for Andrew today, but I'm sure that is in him, and very close to it, because Kruger has opened the gap to 9.6 with 1.5 kilometres to go.
Yeah, and the situation is Musgrave from Alex Harvey, Oosterhoff, Finn Horgan, Krog, Hans Christian Holland. Look at the names that Andrew Musgrave sits ahead of on the board. And Mike, win, lose or draw, stay on the podium. Where does this put Andrew Musgrave in the performances that he's achieved up till now in terms of World Cup racing?
I put this, David, as his best. Okay, the fourth was incredible at a World Championships, but this is a time trial. This is on his own against the best in the world.
Better than that fourth in Lahti?
I think so, because the clock is 15k, and this is the event he wants at the Olympics.
And better than the stage in the Tour de Ski a couple of years back? Stage
is different racing, where the best in the world at the front can be tactical. This is an all-out race, you against the clock. It's a wonderful performance, and I hope he stays in the podium. I think he will.
Mike Dixon and myself, David Goldstrom, we are really rooting for Andrew Musgrave. It looks really, really good for him, Mike, to actually, here he is. This man who really these days is based out of Trondheim, as I said a little earlier in the commentary. Domestically, he works, he trains with the Norwegians, he can stand up, he can beat them on a given day, and he's taken a few Norwegians to task today.
Very much has, and taken the world to task, and it was clear he was a huge talent, even from the age of 10. When I first, 8-year-old actually, when I first met Andrew, he is such a talent, and I'd love to see him stay on the podium.
Now, we have to keep this in perspective, because Magnificat is also doing good work, and Magnificat within a couple of seconds of Musgrave, and I can tell you, at 13.5 kilometres, it's even Steven between the two. So Magnificat is advancing, accelerating. Musgrave, perhaps just one pace going into the finish here, but he still looks as if he could get a podium finish. It doesn't look as if it's going to be first. It probably now looks as if it won't be second, but it might be third.
I think so. Advantage is to Magnificat, who's only 0.6 of a second down with
and
a
he knows that.
And he knows that, so he's getting all the split times, and there's your advantage.
And of course, Magnificat, a winner just last weekend, and here comes Kruger. Now, what about this? Never won a World Cup race, Mike.
He's going to
Simon Kruger. What a terrific race that this young man, and he's put himself right in Olympic selection, because if he gets a victory here, the Norwegians have to take note of him.
They have to take note of him, and this will be his first victory, and it's going to be by quite a margin, 11.5.
Brilliantly paced. Brilliantly paced.
And you know, that last section of this track, the easy section, the downhill section, and you know, the Norwegians spend so much money to get their skis up to the best possible speed they can, and starting behind Muzzy as well, he had the split times to his advantage. Well
17th ranked in the World Cup last season, and things looking a whole lot better for him today. And Kruger came into this race ranked top 10, fourth in the last two races, and if you look at his distance performances, 24th in the Classic in Ruka, 7th in the Pursuit in Ruka, 4th in the Skiathlon, 4th in Davos.
It's quite unbelievable.
Now, question is, can Magnificat find 8-9 seconds in the last 1,500 metres?
I was going to say it's not impossible, but I think Kruger has the advantage for me. The last time around, Magnificat wasn't gliding, wasn't covering this easier terrain quite as fast as Kruger. What about Sundby? He'll be asking himself a lot of questions. When you're used to winning, it must be very difficult to accept not winning.
Or not being selected for the Olympics yet.
And to be quite some margin in terms of time off where you really want to be at this time.
So you can see where Sundby is, dropping down the order all the time.
Well, we'll see Magnificat coming through very soon in about 40 seconds' time.
This has not been an enjoyable afternoon for him.
It's still good racing, let's be honest. 11th in a World Cup, it's still a good performance, it's good World Cup points. but the body language says it all. He's disappointed.
Magnificat, red bib, here we go, and the seconds are ticking away, and Simon Kruger sitting in the big chair looking at the screen, and he knows that victory surely is his now, and it's Kruger ahead. Magnificat chasing Musgrave's time. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11.
Oh, no, just got him by what, less than a second.
It was predictable.
It was, and it was all the advantage there when you're given the split times. And what another fantastic performance from Magnificat.
Oh, terrific performance there. Congratulations to Simon Kruger, a first-time World Cup winner. Maurice Magnificat, second today, following up the victory in Davos. And Andrew Musgrave, another blue ribbon special day for him. Well, Mike, I think if we're going to be honest, we expected a better performance from him today, but he's exceeded our expectations.
Well, I always believe in Muzzy, I always have done, and he hasn't been quite up to spark, but often when you get a few races under your belt, you feel better about your season. I know he's had a fantastic summer, and I think that's now beginning to come through. Third place on the podium in a World Cup, Andrew Musgrave.
Yeah, well, that's going to lift him up from 28th place in the World Cup rankings. 60 valuable World Cup points for that. And very shortly, we switch to biathlon in France. I hope you've enjoyed that. And everybody up at Huntley, stand up, raise a glass and say, well done, Andrew, because that's a terrific performance. From Mike Dixon and myself, David Goldstrom, for the moment. Bye-bye.
Samen sport.